Hey guys. Oh, let me adjust my microphone. How are you guys doing? Go ahead and start putting questions or comments or whatever you want to talk about in the chat because it takes the chat function a few minutes to kind of like load everything up. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say hello and thank you for joining me. And how are you doing? How are things? Um, I just got a phone call from a girlfriend that boards at the facility that I am at, and we might be on a quarantine, hopefully not, for a couple of weeks. The one thing about being at a boarding facility is you can't always control who comes and goes. So if a horse gets sick and it's something contagious, then everybody kind of is subject to whatever restrictions are necessary until everything gets back to normal. And this has happened to us once before. And it meant like 2 weeks of just not riding, which really sucked, so I'm hoping that that's not gonna be the case today. Hey, Olivia. Hey, Lunita, and Roger, and Tara, I think it's Anna, right? I read your comment this morning, and I know you said you were on a family account, but if it is Tara, let me know. But so excited to have you guys joining me. So yeah, let me know what you guys wanna chat about, what questions you have. Hey, Anna. Okay, cool, we got 2 Annas then. Perfect. Awesome. So, hi, Bryn. Hey, Steven. How are you? So, Steven, I saw your comment about my dream trailer setup, and I was doing a little research. And I don't know around where you are. One thing I'm learning about horse trailers is that it is all very regional as to what brands are popular and what brands are considered really good. And so, like here in California, horse trailer brands that are super popular are Trails West, Logan, Circle J, Exis, Featherlight. Some of these are not even in business anymore either. But a girlfriend of mine has a 4-star, and I looked at it, and it was beautiful, and I think they're on the spendy side of things. So, a living quarters would be my next dream upgrade. Of course, I'd have to upgrade my truck, but, yeah. Olivia, have I been looking into more of Fame's personality and whatnot? I have not been actually researching Pirelli's, framework so much, but I have been spending more time thinking about what it is about who he is that makes him behave in the ways that he does. And I was commenting to my husband, there's this irony with horses, right? That they are treated like work animals, right? For hundreds of years, thousands of years even. They've served a very specific purpose, whether that was in wartime or with agriculture or with transportation. And so they've had a job to do. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the conversation now in the horse training world is about how sensitive horses are and how careful we need to be about the use of force or training methods or bits or equipment stuff. And so there's this interesting tension between like horses are extremely sensitive creatures, and then horses are also very durable animals that can withstand, pulling heavy things and working long hours. And, so it's an interesting dichotomy that I feel like I wrestle with because, you see trainers and clinicians and stuff talk about these 2 different sides of things and behave in 2 different sides or 2 different ways, I guess. It's not always consistent or clear to me exactly their approach to that. I don't know if I'm making sense. You guys can let me know if you think I'm totally crazy, but I find myself sometimes getting a little overwhelmed by how delicate and sensitive horses can be, and I definitely see that with Fame. So to kind of get back to his, like, personality thing, I think because, I've done some clicker work with him too, which I feel like really brings out a lot of their personality stuff sometimes. I was watching some Warwick Schiller videos recently, and he started incorporating some clicker stuff into what he does. Um, and, uh and it gives them choice, right? They can voluntarily participate or not, which sometimes is different from other approaches. And so I definitely see some preferences, some attitude, some he's easily overwhelmed. And so we were actually riding in the arena yesterday, and I realized that I need to shorten the training sessions that we do in the arena and just make it super clear. I just wanted you to do that. You did that. Great. We're going to stop. We're going to rest. And then we'd sit there for a while. And then we would try something again. And as soon as he got it, stop, rest, so that it's super clear for him. Because I think he's sensitive enough that he would just get overwhelmed. And then he's like, I don't know what you're asking for. And then he kind of starts panicking. And that's when he gets a little bit jiggy. And um, it ends up being sort of a negative feedback loop for him. Um, but yeah, I know that's something that you really enjoy and you really like. So if you have something to add to that about either Pirelli's horsenality thing or about horsenality, personality stuff in general, I'd love to read it. Bryn, yay, I'm glad I got your name right. That's awesome. Aspen the Lop. Oh, bunnies. It's been decades since I had a bunny. Honestly, Stephanie, you're the most informative and put together small channel I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the channel. That's one thing I just want to say in general, you guys. I'm super appreciative of the comments that you guys leave and the feedback that you give me. It's really encouraging for me. I know when I started YouTube, I was watching a lot of the YouTube help content, and they're like, yeah, I don't expect anything to really happen for a long time. And I just feel like it's been wonderful to get to connect with other horse people like you guys so quickly. So thank you. Anna, what is your dream horse breed? There's so very many awesome looking ones out there. I agree. I get greedy, if you will, when I go shopping. Not that I'm really shopping right now, but I like to look from time to time. And I've decided that I need to ride more different breeds of horses before I buy my next horse. Um, there's a few breeds, like I'd really love to try some more gaited breeds, to be honest, because I took a lesson on a gaited horse, a few lessons a year or 2 years ago. And if you guys are shopping at all for horses and you're looking for a trail horse, I would definitely encourage you to consider a gaited horse because they're fun. Like, the ride is super smooth if you find one that has been trained properly, that doesn't pace, but actually knows its gaits. And then I know within the gated world, like there's, what is it? A lot of people say Pasafinos are super smooth. Some people really love Missouri Fox Trotters. So it seems like once you get into the gated world, you can pick a breed that kind of has the unique gait that you like or the personality that you like. And it's super fun. I like speed though. So I think it kind of depends on how you like to enjoy the trail too, because that's a big part of, I think, just enjoying the trail in general is picking a horse that's going to be a good fit for the pace you like to go. And the nice thing about gaited horses is they've got those intermediate speeds that are not as slow as a walk, but you're not working as hard as you would at a trot, let's say, or at a lope, and you can still really down the trail. You can do bigger loops and not, have to take 4 hours doing it, so you get to see a lot. So I'm definitely on a mission to try more gaited horses. And yeah, I'm trying to think. I've always loved Brabants. I don't know if you guys know what Brabants are. They're a type of draft. I think they're also called Dutch drafts. And if you go on Instagram, there's a few accounts with Dutch drafts. And with Fame being as tall as he is, and now that I do more and more trails, I don't know that I'd want to go bigger than him. So Brabant would kind of probably not be in the realm of helping my issue, but they're so cool looking. So yeah, let me know what your dream breed is, you guys, in the comments. If you've got a breed that you're like, before I die, I need to own one of these. Zalunita, let's talk about fun activities to do with your horse. I just started medieval jousting here in Norco. Oh, cool, Norco. Yeah, you're right in the middle of horse country. That's awesome. Super fun, yet a little scary. I bet. It would be fun to see you and Fame join. Thank you. I need to see if we have anything like that around here because he, I could totally see him doing that. He's got all the hair. He looks like the medieval horse look, Renaissance fair-ish. We do have Renaissance fairs around here. I actually called the lady and said, "Hey, could I join you guys for a horse demo at some point?" But because of insurance purposes, she was like, "No, sorry. It's only our horses." So I need to look into that. I think jousting is amazing, and I would love to try mounted archery. which also looks challenging because you're juggling so many things simultaneously. But ever since I saw Brave, the movie Brave, I'm like, "Oh, that looks so cool." She just has this awesome relationship with her horse. I'm trying to think what other activities, um yeah, like, let me know you guys what kind of activities you're interested in trying. Oh, polo is another one that I think I'm even crazy for mentioning. There's, a polo field near where we are, and I've watched some of their games, and it looks really fun and really challenging, and I'm the type of person that if it scares me, then I feel like I need to do it, but, I think I need to we would need to do some work before we would be good enough for polo. And honestly, I don't know that Fame's really cut out for polo. And I'd have to shave his hair, which I don't know that I'm willing to do. All the polo ponies, they give them a roach mane and then they shave like the base of their tail and so it's not getting caught up in the mallet. I think that's what you call it, the mallet. So yeah, if you didn't get a drum, would you choose a Shire, a Clydesdale, Belgian draft, or cream draft? Ooh. This is a fun question. I'm a sucker for obscure and rare breeds, so I would probably pick an American cream just because I think there's so few of them. And in that train of thought, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of an Ardennes, Ardennes. It's a region in France, but it's also um, a type of horse, a French draft, I believe, would make sense. And a guy reached out to me on Instagram. And in the United States, I think there's only like less than 10 of them, and he has like 2 or 3 of them. Sent me some pictures. They're really, really beautiful horses. And so that's another breed that I'm like, oh, that would be cool. Or like, what is it? Bolognese, I think, are another one that are unusual. This old helmet, it took me years to realize I was allergic to horses. I'm so sorry, that is such a bummer. Do you do allergy shots or do you just suck it up? I think that would be one of my deepest fears is to wake up one day and realize I was allergic. Oh, so the Bay Area, you guys, has a lot of allergies. If you come here, if you ever move here or visit here, a lot of people from other parts of the world, other parts of the country, they move here. And all of a sudden they develop really bad allergies. So I actually have like a bunch of nasal sprays and sinus rinses that I do and all, but it's not related to horses. It's just seasonal stuff. And my dream breed would be a Frisian. Aren't they beautiful? I just love Frisians. I do want to talk to a Frisian owner about them being black, how that impacts their heat tolerance if they're less heat tolerant because they're black. I just think they're gorgeous too. And the thing that's cool about Frisians that it wasn't obvious to me in pictures when I started looking at horses, but when I started meeting them in person, is that their neck set is a little bit different on their bodies. So if you start noticing this on the follow or pictures you see, they have a more vertical headset, whereas like, I guess the opposite extreme would be like a thoroughbred. Thoroughbreds, their top line is fairly low and their head just comes straight out this way. But Frisians have a much more vertical neck set into their torso, and I think that really helps their whole majestic, fancy prancy kind of look. There used to be a Frisian cross boarded at the same place that I board Fame, and you could really see that in his conformation. It was really interesting. Uh, I've always loved Gypsy Vanners. They're gorgeous. They are. I totally agree. My dream is I'm not sure if I'm saying this, is a Swarovski's horse, Przewalski's horse. I'm Polish, I'm messing it up. And I've heard of this horse, but I have yet to meet one or see one. But I would love to know um, what it is about that horse that attracts you. My dream horse is a Haflinger. I am short and stout, and I feel like they would fit me well. Haflingers are awesome. There is a post on my Instagram, and I'm trying to think. I think it was last year in October where we rode with a Haflinger in front of us, and he was the gassiest horse, you guys. Like, literally, every time we stopped, he would just rip, and for seconds long. It was hilarious, and I captured it and I posted it. But aside from that, not that they're all gassy, but he's a really smart horse, and I've heard that. I've heard that Haflingers are really smart horses. But super fun for trail because you wouldn't be getting whacked in the head as much, so that's awesome. The premise behind the Buzkashi? Bukashi is horrible, but the sport requires incredible horsemanship. They play it in Afghanistan. I'll have to look that up. I've actually never heard of that. That sounds really interesting. You do allergy shots. Okay, very cool. Yeah. Thank goodness we've got something to help. Olivia, spotted drafts. Those are really awesome, and I'm planning to go. I don't know if you guys are in anywhere near California, but there is a draft horse show that happens in September in Northern California, and usually there is a spotted draft club that comes. I'll see if I'm planning to go and vlog it, and I'll try to get some footage because they're beautiful and they're huge. I was shocked at how big they are because in the pictures they look a little bit more refined, but they're quite tall and they're massive horses and they're super cool. Dream horse is an Andalusian or Shire, the Lunita. Beautiful horses. Yeah, the Andalusians I've met are hot as well, and that's kind of their reputation. I'm sure there are mellow Andalusians out there, but yeah, they have such lovely movement. They're beautiful horses. Have I ever ridden a mule, and do I notice a difference with their flat back? I have not ridden a mule. I boarded with a woman who had a mule, and she actually she had her poodle ride on the back of it, and she would walk around with it. Not that that's neither here nor there. But, if you're interested in mule stuff on YouTube, there is a gentleman, oh, I'm trying to think of his name. I think it's Trail Adventures. I'm trying to remember what his channel is, and he actually teaches classes on horse camping and stuff. Super cool guy. I'll have to see if I can find his channel or his name, but he has mules. And the people that I've talked to that have mules really love them, but you do have to get a special saddle and all that kind of stuff because they're conformation. Bryn, I'm so excited I found this channel. It made me miss writing, so I started writing lessons again. Congratulations! I'm so happy for you. You're so welcome. I am so stoked that you were doing that. Lessons are a great way to get back into horses. You're riding somebody else's horse that's been there, done that, getting good feedback on your riding. I need to get back into lessons too. That's one thing. Even if you can't do lessons, you guys, I feel like if you can get someone to film you riding for a little while, it's amazing what you think you are doing in the saddle versus what you are actually doing in the saddle. I think for sure half the time that I am leaning further back than I am. I'm trying to work on, I tend to pitch forward just a little bit. I've been working on that. Man, and sometimes I will get my husband to come out and do a little video so I can see how I'm doing. And nope, here I thought I was leaning back really far. So it's almost like you have to overcompensate in your mind if you've got a bad habit. At least I find this to be true. You guys can let me know if you have a different experience, but like you almost have to think you're leaning way back here and then you're actually vertical. Bryn is saving up for a Frisian. Yes. I feel like we need a whole Frisian club. They're so beautiful, so popular. Dream horse is an Arabian. This is Victoria. Hello. Because of how gorgeous and athletic they are. They are. And I feel like too, when they raise their tail and they do their little prancy thing, they just take it to another level. Olivia, if you like mules, there's one on Instagram named Humphrey, and he's precious. Okay, so you guys can go check out Humphrey the mule. Bronx and Donks is a mule YouTube as well. Okay, very cool. Thanks for these suggestions, you guys. I'm going to actually write this down because I'm going to forget myself. Excuse me, sorry. Veronica likes Vanners, Frisians, Warmbloods. You have them all. Lucky you. Frisian is a mix. Would love any huge stocky horse. Thank God you don't have any more money to splash. I know, right? I think that would be my problem if I came into a lot of money is I would just buy tons of horses. This old helmet, I live next to the Chickamauga battlefield from the Civil War, and I found 2 mule shoes in my yard so far. Interesting. So mule shoes are a lot smaller. How do you know that they're mule shoes? I guess I'm curious. I'm not that informed on the mule stuff. Stephen Hood, is that the draft show in Grass Valley? Yes, Stephen, that is the one. It's called the Draft Horse Classic. I think it runs for 4 days, and they do shows in the evening, which I'm hoping to at least attend one. And then during the day, you get to walk around and meet all these different breeds. And last year, I don't think they had it. Maybe it was the year before. I went and got to talk to some people, and it was just a really educational experience, especially if you're trying to compare drafts. Like, I'm not sure if I want a Percheron versus a Belgian versus a Clydesdale. You get a chance to talk to people who own like half a dozen of them because a lot of these folks are doing carriage work, and so they need lots of horses. And and you can kind of hear different people's perspectives on different breeds, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to film. I'm hoping to kind of go around and ask, what makes a Percheron different from a Belgian in your opinion, etc. The other group of folks that are there that are great to talk to is the mounted patrol for a CHP. They come with their big trailer and they are fun to talk to. They put glitter all over their horses and decorate them. So it's a really, really fun time. If you guys are in that area, it's worth checking out. Veronica, I think I look stiff, like really stiff when writing. So I'd rather just assume than know for sure. Yeah, I feel that. I find sometimes if it's been a while, I get overly tense and that's I don't know. Do you ride Veronica? Or are you Western? I feel like in the English world, you guys get a lot of pressure to carry yourselves in a very, very specific way. It reminds me a lot of ballet. I did ballet when I was younger. I was always getting yelled at for, chin up, arms, everything. It gets intense after a while. Veronica, oh, sorry, Victoria, how often do you ride and do you find it affects you in fame if it's not often enough? This is a great question. Yes. So this spring, I have not ridden nearly as much as we did last spring for a number of reasons. I was traveling a lot in April and then in March, and then potentially again now, hopefully not, fingers crossed, we were on quarantine at our facility, so we could not ride. We were not allowed to. And and so it's kind of messed with things. And I do find that fame, even though he is a draft horse and drafts have this reputation for being these chill horses, as I've said many times over, I just don't feel like that's been our experience. I do think there's a lot about him that speaks to that breed stereotype. He does have some steady eddiness to him, and especially on the ground, he can be incredibly just doop, 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 kind of personality. But under saddle, he likes to go, and he can be quite hot, actually. When we went camping last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I rode with a new friend, and she was commenting. She's like, "He's a lot of horse." I think she was surprised too because she was expecting, "Oh, I'm gonna ride with the draft girl." And then we ended up surprising her entirely, and she's on a gaited horse, and we were burning her. So I do find that I think our happy medium would be like 3 solid trail rides a week. I feel like if I could maintain that consistently with some arena days here and there, that's when he's like at his best. And anything less than that, one week or 2 weeks, not the end of the world. But I feel like this spring in particular, because it just has been a big difference from last spring, I'm very much noticing that he's jumpier about stuff. He rushes a little bit more. It takes a little bit longer to get him to settle when we go on trail. So all that stuff we're working on, and I'm just trying to kind of take it in stride and have grace with the boat for the both of us. But if you guys have experiences like that, if you can relate, I'd love to hear what your guys' experiences are with your horses. If you find there's a certain number of rides or hours of riding or something that you have to hit to have a well-behaved horse. The other thing too is we actually don't do as much round pen stuff as we used to. He's already attentive to me, and I feel like when I try, so the whole round pen experience, this could be like a completely different video, but a lot of people use round penning to kind of get their sillies out, if you will, and to get the horse to, in the Western world, they call it hooking on. If you're like a Monty Roberts fan, or I think he calls it joining up. but getting them to pay attention to you and connect with you and be oriented to you. And I find that Fame is like that from the beginning. Like, I could walk into a round pen and he would do all of the follow me around, step backwards, step sideward. So it's not so much that. And when I try to drive him off to do the running in circles thing, it actually just kind of makes him more anxious. He's like, "Why are you swinging ropes at me? Why are we doing this?" So I kind of have taken a break from doing that and just try to work on getting him to bend and stuff on the ground and then get on. But I do think it means that he's got a little more sassiness, but I do try to turn him out too. I do think that helps. He has one big burst of "Wah!" And then he's like, "Okay, now what?" Olivia, what are Fame's favorite activities to do when you're working with him? He I would say he likes the clicker stuff. If we went back to the clicker stuff, he would love that, because it was a lot of, um like, I taught him how to fetch and just kind of silly fun stuff that he enjoyed. When we're under saddle, um, we've started trying to find cows to chase, which we try to pick to do this. But moving the cows, I think he gets some enjoyment out of making something big move. And, what else? I mean, he honestly, his favorite thing in the whole world is to go. So we'll do basically, I call it like HIIT cardio for horses, HIIT. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Like in the human fitness world, it's high intensity interval training. And so for him, it's like we'll sprint and then we'll rest and then we'll sprint and then we'll rest. And he seems to really love that. But I need to do some more like ground sensory stuff with him with tarps and things. We used to have access to some of that, and we need to, I think, just buy our own at this point. Oh, I lost my place in the questions. This old helmet. Oh, so back to the mule shoe thing. They're less wide and long. Okay. Interesting. Victoria, what do I do for work to be able to afford Fame? I work in marketing. And so I feel very fortunate that most of my work is on a computer and I have a lot of meetings, but I also have a lot of project-based work. And as long as I can get things to a good place with email and what have you, then it gives me some time to go out there and ride. But I would say the Bay Area is a tough place to have a horse. So, if you can stay someplace else in the country and have a horse, you're probably better off financially because it's so expensive here, California in general. We're having this mass exodus of people leaving to, to greener pastures, if you will, because it's cheaper in other states. Thanks for joining us, this old helmet. Alyssa, hello, good to see you. Glad you're here. Victoria, you have a sugar bush? That is so cool. You never see those guys out and about. I would love to know more. He said it, blah, blah, sorry. Personality reminds me a lot of your guy. Very cool. I'd love to see. I don't know if you're on Instagram, but I'd love to see pictures of your sugar bush. If you want to send me a picture, I'd love to see that. Love and animals. What do you do with horse flies and flies at the stable or out on trail? Your horse runs away from horse flies. I feel that it's fly season now where we are, and flies suck. And I would say there's a few things that my barn does. They purchase fly predators, which are basically little bugs that eat the larvae of the flies, and you release them at certain points, and they supposedly stop the life cycle by eating the fly babies, if you will, the fly eggs. Some people do, like the jugs and the dome plastic things that you fill with liquid that's scented very grossly, and it attracts the flies and they get trapped inside and they drown and they die. I think those work to a point. Um, but when we're on trail, I was tying up his forelock so that he had better visibility for a while. Now I'm leaving it down as sort of protective built-in fly mask for him. I will wipe swat around his nose because he really doesn't like it when they get on his nose, and then he shakes his head a lot when we ride. I know there's a lot of different fly sprays out there, and I've had a few people recommend tea tree oil to me, which I haven't tried yet. The stuff that we do use is, like, bad chemical stuff, but it works. It's called Permethrin. You can buy it at Tractor Supply or whatever horse stable facility store you have. Really can't talk today, you guys, I'm sorry. And you dilute it with some water in a spray bottle, and that stuff is intense, but it works. And so I try to make sure with all sprays that if there's a breeze, I'm not downwind of the spray. But that I have found that stuff keeps them away long enough for us to be able to enjoy a ride. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have other tips for loving animals on dealing with flies on trail. Leave her a comment because I'm sure that would be appreciated. So, Veronica, you're doing English lessons. Awesome. Yes, shoulders back, heels down, yeah, toes, all that stuff. I feel like there's a mantra in the English lesson world that you can play on repeat in your head about the posture and the way you're supposed to carry yourself. And if I had to plan Fame's perfect day, I would go get him early before it gets hot. He would load in the trailer like a champ, and we would drive off someplace where we could ride for like 3 hours uninterrupted. As much as I really love the friends that we ride with, I would say my favorite times to ride are solo. And kind of why I got into trail riding is I just like the alone time, and I like to kind of be off in my head a little bit and daydream and think about life and enjoy the scenery and just be grateful. And so I'm also a huge introvert too. So that for me is my happy place. And I find that if I don't get that time for long periods of time, apparently I'm not so fun to live with. Uh, but uh, but yeah, if you guys are more introverted or extroverted yourselves, I'd love to know in the comments kind of how that plays out for you. Because I have friends that are very extroverted, and for them, horse time is about having girlfriends to do things with, and and that's where they're happiest is going on group rides and having a girlfriend to chat with on the ride. And I guess, more the opposite, although I enjoy both. So, yeah, the perfect day would be that, and then maybe having a lunch, being able to stop and at the peak maybe and eat some lunch and relax, and he can drink some water and graze before we head back down. That would be my dream. Brand do vet visits cost more for a draft? They don't cost more for where I am. I would check with, your area because it seems like things are different depending on where you go in the country, or if you're not in the United States, if you're outside of the United States. I don't pay more for that. What I pay more for is my farrier. Uh, I get charged a little bit more for a trim, and especially if he was shod, the shoes and all that would cost more as well. And then I pay more for medication for him. So like dewormer. He actually had an ulcer a year and a half ago, and so we did the whole GastroGuard thing, which is extremely expensive. And because of his weight, I was buying like 1.5 times what a quarter horse would have to consume because it was based on weight. So that kind of stuff costs more, and I would assume, any kind of medication or anesthetic that was based on weight that required more because of his size, I would have to pay more, but, like, your typical, teeth cleaning and, shots and all that stuff is all the same for me. The Lunita, do you have family members who also horse ride? And is there a way to train a horse to not leave you when you fall off? As far as the family members, I have family members who would love to ride, but the issue is finding suitable horses, because at this point, affording 4 horses at a boarding facility is not an option for me. Maybe someday it would be amazing. And that's what everyone wants to do is they wanna go out on trail. And at least around here, trying to find a horse to rent to do trail stuff with is extremely, extremely difficult. We are going camping this summer actually to a place that's nearby that will let us rent some horses to do trail rides with, and everyone's really looking forward to that. But that's the only place that I found, to be honest, that will let you do that, unassisted. So, yeah. Wish I had more family members into it, but it's kind of my thing at this point. And how do you train a horse not to leave you? I mean, honestly, I'm not a trainer, so I couldn't tell you how to train a horse. Um, I I think that is probably a question for someone who has experience with training on trail. And some of that might be personality, and it might also be the situation. Like if your horse spooked and the thing that's scary is still there, just out of nature of them being who they are, I wouldn't be surprised if, Fame was like, "See ya, that bear is still there." But yeah, I will say that just from my experience, the more time that I have spent with Fame just in general, and especially time that has not involved writing where I'm expecting anything of him, but it's just been kind of hangout time, if you will. I do feel like that has paid dividends when we've been in tight spots. Like there's been a couple of times where he's spooked because he's gotten himself caught in some tree branches. And for a split second, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be bad. And he stopped. I was like, whoa, whoa. And he actually took a second to listen and he froze for a second. He's like, okay, I'm woeing. And it gave me a chance to kind of get him unhooked and get him safe. And I feel like that built our trust a little bit. But I've spent a ton of time with him, just walking around, uh, leading him to graze. There was a period of a few years actually where because there was a few things going on. I had some personal things going on in my life, and then I was recovering from falling off of him, so I was still traumatized and trying to figure out what to do. And so what I did instead of trying to ride with him was I just hung out with him and we just did stuff. And I feel like now that we're hitting the trails really consistently pretty hard, I do feel like all that time I spent is paying off. I'm seeing benefits when it comes to things like him getting stuck in something, or one time he did kind of I had given a cue of some kind and it startled him and he started trotting up the hill and I thought, "Oh no, my horse is running away from me." And I was able to call out, "Whoa!" And he stopped. He was like, "Oh, you mean you didn't want me to trot?" I think I had accidentally clucked or something. So, yeah, again, I'm not a trainer and I get that would be important to not have your horse bail on you. And fortunately, we haven't had a horrible experience on trail yet. Hopefully, knock on wood ever, but yeah, I do feel like whatever time you can invest with your horse, just being and doing fun things where you're not making them work is is worth doing. It's worth building that relationship in as many different ways as you can. Obviously, you build the relationship writing too. Victoria, he's a hardship sugar bush gelding. Interesting. Okay. Very cool. All right. Shannon, I like Smartpak's fly spray because it's also safe for humans and dogs. Oh, that's good to know. So you spray everyone with it, but it only lasts an hour or two. Yeah, I do feel like that's the thing with fly spray is it's not a one and done. You have to like reapply for it to really be effective long term. And then I know some people do like fly sheets and that kind of stuff. So, but that's when you're stabled. When you're out riding, yeah, it's good to have a spray. So, okay, so Smart Pack, that's good to know. Thank you. America Washington, love your channel. Thank you. Question: how do you feel about bitless writing? I am fascinated by bitless writing, and I would love to try it again at some point. So my first horse, I had a bitless bridle that we did sometimes, and then Fame, I did ride him around in a halter every now and again, but unfortunately, one of our falls happened that way, and so it kind of scared me off of it a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think I would like to find somebody that is in the training world, if you will, that has a good philosophy and approach that I feel like is um, maybe a good transition program for us to investigate at some point. I think one of the challenges that I've personally experienced with bitless writing is, and this is just, I think, more of a social media thing than anything else, is that sometimes people have not been so kind. And so and they come from a bitless background, and their philosophy is that any bitted writing is abuse. And So they have not been the most polite people to try and have a conversation with, unfortunately. And I know that that's not everybody who rides Bitless. It was just happened to be these people. But yeah, I think at some point I'd like to learn more about it and a way to do it that is safe and that would be a good transition for us. Um, I'm trying to think what else I could say about this because I feel like it's kind of a hot topic. I don't know if you guys have perspectives on this that you'd like to share. I'd totally be open to reading some more comments about it. But it does seem like right now my perception is that it's for some people it is touted as the ultimate in humanity and care and horsemanship is if you can ride bitless. Then that there's this unspoken equivalency to, well, then your horse must be the best behaved, best trained. You must be the most humane. You must be the most um, excellent rider to be able to do this. And I'm skeptical of that. But again, I know that's I'm blanket statementing. I know not everyone feels that way about bitless riding, but that's the part that I find a little bit challenging in terms of just trying to learn more about it and learning to transition to trying it. Um, so, but yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' experiences with bitless riding or the bitless side of the horse world, what your perceptions are, what your experiences are. We can circle back to that topic. 11 animals, you're an extrovert. Okay. But you enjoy trail rides more when you're alone. Interesting. Okay, cool. I do agree with you that it does give me more time to think and enjoy nature as well. So that's interesting to hear because I feel like our personalities and our horses' personalities, all of these things go into impacting the trail experience. Alyssa, I'm very introverted myself, but then again, I have no friends to annoy me. Lucky you. No. With that, so I guess it got easier like that. Haha. Yeah. No, I think the thing that personally, the thing I find really challenging is the different paces. You know, Fame is always faster than pretty much everyone that we ride with at this point. And so I feel like a lot of times I'm stuck choosing between doing what he needs in that moment versus trying to maintain the social relationship. And I feel a little bit torn sometimes because I don't want him to be soured on the experience of riding with a group, i.e., it means that I always have to go slow, we have to circle and blah, blah, blah. So I do try to reward him by, letting him go faster and move out. And I don't want to stop that in him in any way. I don't want to quench that. But then I like to be able to chat with my friends sometimes too. So ah, good problem to have though, I guess. Veronica, I would love to ride alone, but my warm blood won't walk alone outside. 18 years old, 17 too, but acts like a 3-year-old. Yeah, I know they don't always mature in the way we expect them to, do we? Um, so yeah, okay. So maybe you can borrow a friend's horse so that you get the experience of riding alone. A Bowling loves Andalusian horses. Yes, you're in good company. We have some Andalusian lovers here as well. Um, Alyssa's an extrovert with animals, but an introvert with humans. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's true. We tend to be different with our animals than we are when we're with people, aren't we? I find that to be true of myself anyway. A Bowling, great idea about filming yourself and riding or filming yourself riding. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it can be hard to stomach looking. I don't know if you guys have a hard time looking at yourself on camera. You would be surprised, but I do. Is doing YouTube makes no sense, but watching myself ride, I'm always like, "Oh." Hey, Rebecca, glad to have you join us. No problem. Glad you are here. Randy, yes, you can train a horse to stop if you fall off. Most stop anyway. Okay, cool. So maybe Randy has some more tips on that or someone he can direct us to. I have found that the well, the one time I fell off of Fame, he ran away, but we had like zero relationship at that point. We were brand new to each other, so I wasn't expecting much. But I do feel like at this point in our journey, if I were to fall off, he would stop because I'm his herd. Oh, I lost my spot again. A list. Everything you put into those animals, you get back for better or worse. This is true. Animals are amazing mirrors for us, and I think if we are able to be open to what they're saying about us, it can be humbling, it can be exhilarating, It's a huge learning experience. I do feel like that is kind of the amazingness of horses is that you get all kinds of feedback, and I have found that it has helped me change just as a person, just dealing with other people, dealing with work, uh, how I interact with my horse and what I learn through my horse. Alyssa, I personally prefer Bitless with the horse that I train and ride on, but she does really well with it, and not all horses do. Okay, interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a great point that it can be an individual experience that like some horses really like it and do better with it. And I've heard that as well, that there are some horses that for whatever reason, maybe they've had a bad bit experience or they just prefer the Bitless. But that's not necessarily for everyone. So that's really awesome that that's your been your experience and that you recognize that. Um, because yeah, again, I guess I maybe I've just had some unusually negative experiences from, again, social media probably. I'm not around a whole lot of people that ride Bitless, to be honest, so I don't get to ask too many questions about, yeah, how did you do it, and how does your horse behave differently or not? So that's nice to hear that you've got that good experience. Loving animals, how do you drive to do a trail ride? Oh, how long do I drive to do a trail ride? Anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour is usually as far as I'll drive. And we have a lot of traffic here. So that's something I have to take into account too. How is my boy during trailering? I'm always worried about trailering. By the way, I love your channel. Your voice is very nice to listen to. Wow, thank you so much. Um, he does good with the trailering once he's in the trailer. Sometimes he gets into like a little pouty Eeyore phase. And if that sometimes it's because he's just pushing my buttons and he just wants to stay and eat grass, in which case it's like, I'm patient and pleasant but firm, like, "No, this is what we're doing now." There have been times where I realized that I was pushing it too much and he needed a break. And so I try to be mindful of if he's reluctant to load, what he's trying to tell me. And I haven't always been great at understanding it, but I feel like I've got a better sense of it now. But once he gets in the trailer, he's great. He doesn't freak out or anything like that. I don't tie him up, but some people do. People have very different philosophies on this. I just drape the lead rope around his neck and he does fine. He doesn't seem to step on it or do anything crazy. But I know from a safety standpoint, a lot of I've been recommended that it is nice to tie them because if they get off balance, being tied helps them right themselves. But then I've heard other people say, "Oh, I never tie them because I knew a horse that got, something horrible happened. They got strangled in the trailer in an accident." You guys, I feel like this is the thing with horses is you can talk to someone and get two very different experiences, two opposite experiences about the same thing. But he does a good job, and we took it in stages. So if you're worried about trailering your guy, I do think, not just throwing them in and going them for their first trail ride is probably gonna be too much. We started off just driving around the property, and then we'd get out, and then we'd go down the street and come back. So there wasn't actually any trail riding happening from trailering for the first several times. And I think there's cameras you can buy these days. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can buy a camera that'll let you see in your car how your horse is doing in the back if you're concerned about safety or how they're reacting. Veronica, when we went camping for 2 weeks, my friend, after the 5th day, rode with fly spray in her hand. Oh my gosh, the sound after a few days drove us nuts because she was just yeah, that would drive me nuts too. That is hilarious. Bryn, I'm extremely extroverted, but I love being around people on trail. Around people, but trail riding, I like less people. I enjoy going on adventures with my horse. It's fun to go with people, but I do enjoy load time. Yeah, I think that seems to be the consensus for a lot of us, is there's something magical that happens when you're a horse on trail. And when I actually started with Fame, I had someone tell me that that was, like, a horrible, unsafe thing to do. And I was like, "Really?" Because that's all I've ever done. And, yeah, and I do think it's something specific to you, to your horse. Riding alone maybe isn't for everybody, but I'm super grateful that it's something that we can do because I think I'd be very sad if it no longer was an option because I enjoy it that much. So I agree with you. Shannon, I'm starting my Pasofino bitless. Okay, I think he used to have a lot of mouth pain, as he has permanent indents in his mouth. Poor guy. Someday I'd like to find a bit he likes, but for now he does well. That's great. I love that. That sounds like you're very, being very attentive to what he needs and what's gonna be a good fit for him. And to me, that's always, like, the way to go, right? Is we gotta take it into account, our horse's history and their individual personality and needs so much. Um, Eva, I hope I'm saying that right. Eva. I really wanna try bitless riding, but I don't have a horse, so it's not my call what tack I ride in. Yeah, yeah, if you're leasing and stuff, that's definitely always something that you gotta run by whoever owns the horse, what they're comfortable with. And I love riding bitless, but it isn't for everyone and every horse. Some horses like bits. My horse finds the bit comforting, but another horse I ride has past trauma from the bit, so she's bitless. Very interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I do think, um, the idea of a bit being comforting is really fascinating, and I've heard people say that the salivation and having something to kind of chew on, it's almost like a binky or a security blanket for some horses that it just makes them gives them something to self-soothe with, I guess. So that's really neat to hear that reinforced. And then yeah, it's unfortunate how many horses have had terrible bit trauma. So it is nice to have the bitless option for horses that have had really negative experiences. So very cool. Props to you. Rebecca, are you attending the Horse Expo? Yes, I am. I'm planning to go on Saturday. So, if you're gonna go, let me know. It'd be fun to meet up. You guys are gonna be going to the Horse Expo. I can't decide who I wanna go see. This is the thing about these events is I find that they've got a roster of people speaking, and I wanna hear all of them, but I have to choose one because they're all going at the same time. So, yeah, and those of you that are looking into gaited horses, Gay DeRusso. She has actually a channel here on YouTube. Her name's Gaye DeRusso is her last name. She's the woman that I took the gaited lessons from, and she's a wealth of information on gaited horses. And she's going to be doing a talk this weekend at the expo. And then her channel also, she's got a lot of interesting stuff on the horses that she trains. So she's worth checking out. The Lunita confession, my husband and I are planning for a future baby, and I'm terrified of being pregnant and not being able to exercise my horse as my husband is not a horse person and I care for our animals. I totally feel that. And I've actually been curious about this as well. There are some YouTube videos online of women who, in fact, the one that I watched, she was like 7 months pregnant when she was filming. And her advice was like, yeah, you obviously don't wanna be riding a crazy bucking wild stallion, but she was riding a horse that she was comfortable with and felt it was reliable. And, um, and her advice was like, when you're no longer comfortable, don't ride. Like, don't put a pressure on yourself to have to ride or to not ride by a certain point, which I thought was really great advice. And, um and I do think, like, coming up with other activities and games, going back to kind of the earlier parts of our conversation, if you had joined us at that point, to do with your horses, to stimulate them, to keep them active, I think would be a great idea when you're pregnant, like, to have a repertoire of things that you can do with your horses that's beyond just riding. Um, and I have talked to actually a few different equestrians that I respect that are more talented than I am when it comes to riding, who rode well. And I found that encouraging as well. So I think it just kind of depends on your situation and your horse. And as I mentioned in the trail riding video that we posted earlier, I think it was this week, there are these vests that you can wear now too that will expand if you come off the horse. And I believe they expand outward, but that would be something to investigate. And they have little CO2 cartridges, and you connect the vest to your saddle, and if, there's enough tension on the cord, the vest will expand and hopefully protect you and protect the baby in a fall, but I'm not completely sure of how those work, so I would do the research, but that could be something worth checking into. But yeah, definitely it helps to have husband on board with stuff. So, educating, our loved ones about our passion is is important too. Uh, oh, sorry, I lost my spot. Ava, thank you. Okay. Anna, the expo is called the Western States Expo, and it's held in Sacramento at the Murrieta Equestrian Center every year, and it was supposed to be in I think it was supposed to be in April normally, but they moved it because of COVID, because, COVID, everything. So, yeah, if you're interested, Google the Western States Expo, and it's happening this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Bowling, lone time is great, especially riding a horse. Totally with you. I feel like that is like I get all my good ideas, I become a happier person. Yeah. Rebecca, that's so awesome you'll be there. I'll probably be completely fangirl. Well, you're gonna go see Warwick. Okay, yeah, I was thinking about checking out Warwick too. And Warwick's local to me, so I was so annoyed. I found out he was doing clinics at his place in Hollister, and I wanted to go, but I found out too late, like, they were already sold out, and I'm on his mailing list, and I don't know how this happened, and I didn't find out about it in time, but I was so bummed, so hopefully he does another one. But he'd be a great person to see. Loving animals. I have a horse camera in the trailer. Oh, cool. Okay. When I look at my horse while trailering, I feel her dancing, but in the camera, she's just looking around. So I'm trying not to be too worried. That's wise advice. I feel like you guys, like with horses, there's so many things we could worry about. And I'm definitely someone that's prone to being a little bit anxious about some things. So I get that. And I always have to just tell myself, it's okay. Chances are everything is going to be just fine. Just enjoy. Enjoy the drive. But it is nice to have that camera. That's pretty cool. Shannon, you're a Warwick Schiller fan too. Very cool. Yeah, he's got a great channel. He is, and the thing I really like about him is that he has evolved and he has been very humble about his journey. I feel like he's been honest about the fact that he's in transition or has been in transition and rethinking things, and he's brought his personal growth into it too. Like the last video I watched of his, he was talking about how the reason that he talks to his horses so much is not because he thinks that the words actually matter so much, but that it helps him emote. He recognizes that his horses have been shut down and he's been shut down, and that going back to that idea that horses mirror us, right? And so he uses language to help bring his emotions and his feelings to a conscious level, and in turn do that for the horses, which I just thought was really wonderful to hear. I'm big on feelings and naming feelings and language. I was an English major, so that kind of stuff just it gets me. So I thought that was really cool to hear him share and be vulnerable like that, right? Like I feel like anytime someone gets into a position of authority, there's this temptation to not be vulnerable because there's this pressure on you to have it all figured out. And he seems to be kind of not too worried about that. All right. I feel like the equestrian community is so much bigger in the US. Oh, so where are you? I wish I knew more horse people and horse events to go to. I mean, I definitely feel like we do have a lot of stuff. I get the impression too Europe has a lot of stuff, but maybe that's because I'm an American and we look at Europeans as having all this history. But yeah, let me know where you're at. Alyssa will be back in a little bit. All right, we'll be here. Veronica, I want to start my full Bitless next year, but my two oldest ones did not like it. Oldie just puts his head down and scratches his leg, and my mare ride's okay and all, but seems stressed, so we stopped that. Yeah, um, that's really interesting to hear that, you've had two very different experiences. I guess it just goes to show that horses are just like people, right? They've all got their unique personality quirks, things they like, things they don't like. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys, there's a part of me that if I tried to just slap on a couple of reins on Fame's halter, that that we would get into a tight spot and I would really not have any control. And I know this idea of like, oh, well, you don't control, if a horse wants to take off with you, they're going to take off with you and you don't control them with the bit, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I get that it's not about yanking on their mouth. And I really try my best to be as gentle and mindful of that as possible. But I guess, I don't know, there's a part of me that kind of goes, well, as far as the communication goes, I don't know. Maybe that's just my own past trauma talking from having fallen off. But I am definitely interested in it. I will tell you guys, so I have not edited this video yet. and I need to because I'm very behind. I did ask. I went to a Chris Cox horsemanship clinic, learned so much, and it was just an amazing experience. And I did ask him about his take on that, and he and I don't want to speak for him, so I want to be careful about how I say this, but I was kind of like, is Bitless sort of the ultimate? I guess was kind of my question. And he didn't feel like that it was. He felt like there was so much horsemanship involved in working with a bit as well. And that he's done both and that he feels like there's a tremendous amount of skill involved in writing with a bit. And so it was a really interesting take. And I hope I'm not misrepresenting his philosophy at all. So please don't take that as this is what Chris Cox believes or Chris Cox says. But that was just my perception of his answer to my question, and that was the takeaway for me. I guess was that um, that I was, I guess, wrong in my perception to think that it's the end all be all. That not everyone feels that way. I guess is my point. That there is skill to be had in all areas of equestrianism and horsemanship, which I do think is true. I just think it seems like there's some areas of it that get more attention than others, right? They get touted as being a bigger deal than others. And like here's a great example, trail riding. Uh Someone had talked to me and was saying, oh, she had messaged me and she was like, oh, I told this woman that I'm interested in buying this horse and I told her that I want to trail ride and she kind of like poo-pooed me. Like, oh, you're just going to do that. You're just going to trail ride. And I don't think that she's alone in this experience. I think there are some people out there that see trail riding or hacking as being um, not as demanding, maybe compared to other sports. I don't know what this lady's deal was. It was a very brief message conversation, but I have heard that from other people. And I think that's so not true, right? In a lot of ways, trail riding is the most demanding in the sense that you're in an environment you can't control. You're dealing with so many unknown variables, weather, terrain and footing, wildlife, other people, other users of the trail, um, big, open, uncontained space, which can be very scary. So, there's so many things about trail riding that even though it can seem very casual, that do require a fair amount of skill and put significant demands on the horse and the rider. And I think that's, another example of where, people get into comparisons. And I think a lot of times we end up shooting ourselves in the foot when we get too much into the comparison aspect of things, because there really is so much about horses and horsemanship and riding. And each discipline, each activity has some pretty compelling demands and challenges that I hope we're all able to just recognize and appreciate. But good luck with your foal. I hope that goes well. Be interesting to see how things evolve for you. And I would consider sending to training so your horse is ready for you to learn to after the baby arrives. Training is helpful. Finding a good trainer is super important. Um, Rebecca, admit I was freaked out. You're just going to be at the expo. Okay, cool. So you guys are having your conversation. Yeah. If you're just joining me, the Horse Expo in Sacramento is happening this weekend. If you're in California or Nevada or Oregon and you want to make the drive, it should be fun. Megan, what is the best horse tip you have ever received? I have received so many. I would say the best horse tip that's been helpful to me right now has been that I'm not going to break my horse. Because I think I got into a space where I was like, am I doing this to bother him? Am I doing this? Like, is the bit uncomfortable? Is the saddle pad uncomfortable? I was kind of getting a little bit worried about a lot of different things stressing him and worried about him being stressed. And it was coming from a good place. Like, I want to take the best care of my animal that I can. I realize that I've made mistakes in the past and I want to learn and grow from those things. So I'm not making those mistakes. And instead I'm making new and different ones. But finally, someone was just like, "You know what? You're not gonna break your horse. Just try something." Because it was preventing me, I think, from being committed and consistent with one particular approach. And the problem with that is that, I mean, A, you run the risk that it's the wrong approach. And that's always the risk that we take. But the problem that I was having is that it was preventing me from just starting. Like I had no data to prove if the challenges that we were facing were because of this or that, or there were so many variables. And so finally, someone was just like, "You're not going to break your horse. Just do it. Just try it. Just be consistent with it. See how it goes for a little while. And then decide if maybe this needs tweaked or maybe that needs tweaked." And I feel like for where I am right now, that's really the best thing is I need to limit how much input I get, because after a while, I could keep reading and watching videos and researching. I'm one of those people to the point that I don't get started. And I'll start with one thing, but then "Oh, but maybe I should incorporate this," or, "Oh, well, maybe I should take in that," or, "Oh." And there's always a place to be open and flexible, I think, and grow, but you also need to at least be heading in a certain direction for a little while before you can start taking in new input. And that was the thing I was struggling with. So I would say that was my tip. That was what it meant to me to have someone say that. And I rode till pregnancy hormones loosened ligaments so that I put my leg on and popped my hip. Oh, ouch. That sounds painful, but very cool to hear that you rode while you were pregnant. I appreciate you sharing that. You sound like a hardcore cowgirl. I love it. Hopefully the leg and the hip thing ended up being okay. I hope that wasn't a terrible injury. Jessica, hello. Good to have you here. Violet, hi. Nice to have you. Sounds like a lot of groundwork. Terrific. Yes. Favorite brand of fly mask other than Lycra? It is called Bangs. At this point, to be honest, I don't use his fly mask hardly much at all because his hair seems to be doing a better job. And I know that sounds lazy, but the ones that we do have, I think, are casual. And uh, the ones that he didn't tear up to pieces, I really like the fine mesh ones because I think it helps them see. But he's rough on his stuff. And so the ones that are just your typical kind of plastic coated weave, I can take off and kind of beat and the dust comes off, or I can hose them off pretty easily and then put them back on. And I think casuals are the ones that actually fit him. That was the other problem we have, is that he's got such a big head that your average fly mask does not fit. Um, oh, you're in Belgium. Okay. You guys have cool horses out there, don't you? I feel like you guys get all kinds of cool drafts, at least when I'm on Instagram. It seems like that's what gets recommended to me. Yes, we are a horse country, but I feel like all of that horsey energy is with the professional riders. Oh, interesting. Okay, so not so much like lay people just going out and having a good time. That's a bummer because you guys have beautiful countryside, right? I've been, say, in Antwerp. I can't remember where I was. It was in the city though, so maybe I'm not the one to talk. You know your country better. Violet, I haven't rode in years, but I wish to again one day. I hope you get to too. Steady hands, happy horse. Amen. But you look at Europe as a whole with COVID, you stuck to one country. I feel like California might be bigger than the whole of UK. Plus, I think that the UK has lots of sports activities, not that many talks. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting to kind of figure out from like a talk educational standpoint, seminars, webinars, all that kind of stuff. I do feel like we do have a lot of that. Um, yeah, you can pay for any kind of class talk that you want, it seems. People have their programs, they've got their courses, they've got events that they do. Yeah. Hello, Kaylee, glad to have you. Bryn asks, "Do I let my horse snack on the trail?" I do, but not while I'm riding him, because I feel like this would be one of those ish things that I would start and we would never be able to stop. He has snagged a couple of bites when I've been on him, so I can't say never, but I try not to let that be a thing. Uh, I have a friend that does endurance racing and she lets her horse snack. Yes. And in the endurance world, I feel like they have slightly different rules because their priority is to keep their horse sound and hydrated and keep their electrolytes up because they're going for such long distances. I've been doing a little bit more reading about this because believe it or not, I would like to actually try a limited distance endurance ride with Fame because he has so much go. I feel like he could probably handle one of the shorter ones possibly. And another friend says you can't let them snack because it causes colic. I've never heard of a horse colicking off of a snack on a trail unless maybe they ate something toxic. But personally, I've never known anybody to have that be the problem. Most people I ride with have the opposite problem, where they've let their horse snack while they ride, and now every time they ride, their horse is trying to steal snacks, and it becomes this on the extreme end of things, it becomes a bad habit that they're trying to actually correct. But that's the people that I ride with. It could be different for other folks. But I do let Fame eat and drink when we're on trail, but I try to make it the eating part happen when I'm dismounted and we're taking a break so that it's kind of clear for him, like, this is the time that you can eat, but you can't just walk by and grab stuff and slow down the ride. Have a great ride, Kaylee. She's going off to her barn to go trail ride. So we can all vicariously live through Kaylee right now. Veronica, I ride on the buckle most of the time. It seems like they just like something in their mouth. Yeah, it sounds like for some horses they like having something to move around in their mouth. And yeah, it's like they get used to things just like we do. And if you change their habits, like, what are you doing? Uh, oh, Kaylee, you got thrown off and charged by a horse. Hopefully you have a safer ride this time. Levin, it was great having you join us. Thank you for hanging out. Uh, yeah, we are actually I'm gonna do a few more questions, guys, and then I'm gonna try and steal some horse time myself. Jessica asks, "What do you look for in a trainer?" This is a great question, Jessica. I feel like this needs to be its own video because I asked so many questions and shopped so many trainers before I settled on the one that I picked. And I feel like I'm fortunate. I live in an area where there are a lot of trainers, and so some of this will depend on where people live as to the choices that they have. I personally wanted to watch them work with a horse. And so I would ask, "Hey, do you mind?" I'd ask them the questions. We chat on the phone. "Hey, here's my situation. This is what I'm looking to do." And I would ask, what is your availability? What's your philosophy? What's your policy? But then at the end of the day, if I liked what I heard on the phone, I wanted to go watch them. And for me, I wanted to find a trainer who was going to be attentive and patient with Fame because I do feel like he's a pretty sensitive guy. And I was concerned that if I put him with a really hardcore, intense trainer that had a very aggressive kind of personality, that it was going to put him in a place of behaving badly in the sense that he would become more reactive because he'd be so startled, or he'd end up really shut down. Like he'd comply, but there would be, no there anymore. So those were two big concerns that I had. So for me, it was about finding a trainer who really seemed to have that kind of energy, I guess. And by watching that person work with a horse or two, I felt like I got a good sense of that. So there were some people right off the bat, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a great fit. Like, and I didn't necessarily tell them why. I just was kind of like, okay, thank you so much. I'll let you know if we have any more questions. It was kind of an open ended thing. So that was a big priority for me, was to find someone that I felt like their philosophy and their approach aligned with what I felt like was a good fit for my horse. Now, if you don't have a horse yet, I still think it's good to maybe, ask around, maybe interview trainers if you think you're going to end up needing some training at some point, because a lot of us do. Even if we get horses that are trained, we want to tune up, we want to work on some things. And I think having a trainer that is a good fit for you too is important, which I know that's asking a lot, because there's some trainers that are fabulous with horses and not so great with people and vice versa. But to an extent, I also wanted to find someone that I felt like was gonna be, uh, good for me because I wanted to grow along with the process of my horse growing, and I wanted to be able to take lessons from this person. And so I needed to feel like we had a good basis for communication as well. And a lot of that again came down to, just talking to them, having conversation. Like, does this person seem to communicate well? Do I get good vibes from them? Are they clear and upfront? Do they have good boundaries? Because just any kind of business transaction, I feel like where people get into a lot of trouble is they don't have good boundaries. There isn't a clear defined, this is how many times a day I will or times a week I will be training your horse. This is what will happen if I can no longer train your horse. This is what I expect of you. All of those things ideally get discussed when you're shopping for a trainer so that if for some reason something comes happen and your trainer can't train your horse or, they're not just turning it over to somebody um, under them that, "Hold on, wait a minute, this isn't what I'm paying for, this isn't what I signed up for." Or if you decide it's no longer a good fit, you know, how is the money changing hands if you pull your horse from training mid-month? Um, so there's those types of details too, that are good questions to ask. And I'm kind of blanking on all the details, but it is a video that I would like to make. But ultimately, I would say finding someone whose philosophy kinda lines up with what you want for your horse and is someone you can communicate with. Um, I would say those were my top priorities in finding a trainer. And then beyond that, in terms of, like, experience, I really wanted someone who had experience doing what I wanted Fame to do. I wanted someone who knew trail riding. And there were some amazing trainers in my area, but their background and experience was like dressage or, eventing, which I'm sure there is and was a lot that they could have taught us, but given that what we wanted to do was trail riding, I felt like if I could find someone who had experience with that, that would probably be the best fit. So, I hope that kind of gives you some food for thought. There's so much to it. And I would encourage you to ask around if you have other horse friends, what their experience has been with trainers because some people have great experiences, some people don't, and it's always really helpful to kind of hear both sides. What worked for you? Why did you love your trainer so much? What didn't work for you? What would you have done differently? All that kind of stuff I think is super helpful. So, um, but yeah, I think that's probably gonna call it a stream today, guys. We went over time, so Um, sorry if it ended up being longer than you wanted to stay for, but I definitely appreciate you guys joining me and appreciate all the feedback and the love and sending it right back to you. I wish you the very best with your horses and your horse shopping journey if that's what your plan is. If you're going to be buying a horse, best of luck. We're definitely going to do more of these at some point. So hopefully this time worked okay for you guys. I'll send out another poll the next time we're gonna do one. And I'm so glad to hear your hip was okay. Very happy to hear that and glad that you joined us. Randy, thank you for joining us. Steven, thank you. So nice to have you guys hanging out. Hopefully it was fun and entertaining, and I hope you guys will join me for the next one. So take care. We'll see you guys next time.